Welcome to Gone to Texas, a podcast about AMC's Preacher. My name is Alex, and I have not read any of Garth Ennis's Preacher.
And my name is Lance, and I have read all of Garth Ennis's Preacher.
Today we'll be discussing episode 8 of the show, titled El Valero, which I believe is the name of the mission that is the Alamo, as we know it now.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
Write in if you don't know, or if I'm wrong. But while we will not be spoiling any of the comic, and by extension any future plot lines of the show, we will be discussing the details of the series through episode 8. So pause this and go watch the show before you listen to the rest of the episode. You can find more of the episodes of our podcast at g2tpodcast.com, which is the letter G, number 2, letter T, podcast.com. We're also G2T Podcast on Twitter, and you can send feedback to g2tpodcast@gmail.com. To tell us what you think of our show, share your thoughts on AMC's Preacher so we can read them on air. Send us corrections, observations, anything regarding Preacher or our podcast, or let me know if I'm wrong about El Valero.
I think that sounds about, and it's related to what happens in the episodes. So.
Yeah. So we have some listener feedback this week from two of our standbys here. Number one is Bruce, of course. Hey, just dropping in to comment on the last episode to answer the question. I like Arseface in the comics because he was a character that had every reason to be the most depressing and dark person in the series, but instead was a cheery and mostly upbeat and optimistic individual. I found that contrast to be funny and charming. That's the answer to Nick's question. We'll see what Nick found out and what Nick thinks about it next week. And then he said, my observations on episode 7. To me, the scene with Tulip running around and doing parkour was pretty funny because it looked like she was doing something important and badass, but she was just chasing down some stupid kids to get a pair of pants back. It's a pretty valid point.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I thought it was hilarious how Cassidy went on a tirade about The Big Lebowski, but then turned around and endorsed The Lady Killers, which is one of the less acclaimed Coen Brothers films, to put it lightly. That does seem like something Cassidy would say. Totally agree.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I actually have a theory about the flashbacks that shouldn't be too spoilery. I think John Custer sent Tulip away because he had suspicions that the men who ultimately killed him were going to show up, and he didn't want her caught in the middle of that. Quote, she's an O'Hare, unquote, was just a pretext he gave to Jesse, maybe because there are things in his past he didn't want to tell his son about. I think that's pretty solid, but I don't know if it's something we'll cover in the show or not.
Cover, I mean, like how?
Cover in the sense of, like, I don't see there being any opportunity for us to learn a revelation about John's making that decision.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah. But it could be wrong.
You know, that is a very striking thing to say, she's an O'Hare, because it makes me roll back my mind and think, like, what was in the comics about the O'Hares, which I can't remember anything. So,
well, and the other thing is, it's kind of weird for John Custer as the preacher to say that. As somebody who's, like, supposed to believe in the idea of forgiveness from God.
You know, yeah, every day preachers meet people who have sinned, and they're supposed to forgive them. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you could see him being like, I'm not God, so I'm not the one that has to forgive. But
yeah,
you know, that's a weird separation there.
Right, right. And then so the two people, if you've read the comic, you will have an idea of who those two people are. So it might or might not tie in with that theory. Just saying.
Which two people?
The two people that come to kill John Custer.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Because those could be two solid characters from the book, and I'm so, anticipating their arrival. Yeah.
That's true. We don't know much about them yet.
Yeah.
So maybe maybe that could clue us in a little bit. So.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then Bruce goes on to say, also about the flashbacks, I thought that Jesse praying to God to kill his father makes for an interesting parallel with Donnie's son approaching him in the pilot and asking Jesse to hurt his dad. It definitely would inform Jesse's response to that request. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'd have to go back and watch that scene again, but yeah. I think so. The truth of what Eugene did is another example of how well the show can change how you perceive certain characters as it progresses. Other examples being Donnie and to a lesser extent Emily. I like this so much, partly because there's a certain character the comic did that with, but I won't say who to avoid spoilers. But I think he's talking about how we see Donnie being vulnerable with his wife, and we learn that Emily is sleeping with Miles.
Yeah. Like just more, more to unfold.
Yeah. Kind of subverting any expectations.
Right.
And then he says, one little detail you missed in the flashbacks is that the principal mentioned that one of the bullies was Donnie and that Tulip bit his nipple off. That stood out to me because there was a debate on Preacher's subreddit a few episodes back over whether Donnie was missing a nipple or if it was down to the lighting tricking people. Interesting. Totally missed that.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I didn't realize that at all. And then his final thought here. And since you brought up your perfect casting choices, I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that your pick for Jesse would be John Bernthal because Dylan face. I think Nick and I have discussed that in the past. So yeah, that's probably a pretty safe bet.
Yeah.
But are there? We'll have to have you. Maybe we'll do a season wrap up with you and John and Nick and I.
Yeah.
And we can discuss any other perfect casting, like if we could choose them all.
Sure. Yeah.
What we would do. So, all right. Thank you, Bruce, for writing in. As always, great to hear from you. Hope we'll hear from you more before the end of the season. And then we've also got Yoop here. Yoop says, hi, guys. Love the podcast and the way you discuss every episode. Also like to give a shout out to John and Lance for the entertaining episodes. Maybe you can team up for the final episode of the season.
That sounds good.
We might just do that, Yoop. With all the formalities out of the way, let's discuss Preacher. I have a theory about Genesis. My guess is that Genesis is Donnie from The Big Lebowski. In that movie, Donnie dies and his remains were stored in a coffee can. Genesis also lives in a coffee can. Coincidence? I think not.
Ooh.
My second piece of evidence is that every time Donnie is trying to speak, Walter tells him to shut up. Obviously, this is because Donnie has the power to tell others what to do.
This is good stuff.
It's shaping up.
Yeah.
I'm convinced this is true, and all this will be revealed in the final scene of this season. Why else would they talk about The Big Lebowski all the time? Winky face. What do you guys think? Do you agree with my not-so-serious theory? Keep up the quality-structured podcasting, Yoop. Thank you for the quality-structured comment there, Yoop. Yeah, that's entirely likely. No.
Hey, man, it's the world's a big place.
With Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg at the helm, it's possible.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there is more than usual talk about Coen Brothers in this piece of entertainment.
Potentially the most talk about Coen Brothers in any other piece of media.
Yeah. So
fictional media.
I mean, I like the connection, and you know what? Maybe it will be true. I will be happy if it's true.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see you. Thanks for writing in. Let us know if any of you other guys out there have any crazy theories. Write in g2tpodcast@gmail.com. All right, so let's dive into the episode. We start with the teaser opening on a ski resort in Vail, Colorado, seemingly in the 80s or 90s. By the hairstyles and the ski jackets and stuff they had on.
Yep.
And the ski tram basically falls to the ground. And then we cut to a younger Odin in his harshly lit office, and we hear a recording of Odin asking John Custer to come by because something terrible has happened. And then we see Odin in his office with several crates sized like coffins, as if suggesting the people that died in the tram accident are his family or people he knew. He tells John that he was conducting an experiment and the results aren't good. It seems like he's kind of dissected his daughter and a cow in order to understand if there's a soul or something inside, the spirit inside. But he sees no difference. It's all meat. And then Odin asks John to denounce God publicly in front of the city because he can't find a soul in his daughter's body. This tells us a lot about Odin.
Yeah, sure does. Yeah, a lot of backstory. Yeah,
it's a bit of a summation of his actions and kind of his thesis statement, if you will. What did you think about this teaser? I think it's a pretty striking thing to be the first thing you see in this episode.
Oh yeah. I mean, we didn't know this about Odin beforehand or anything, so having it happen right at the beginning and learning, why he would and why almost anybody would want to not believe in God if your whole family dies in one fell swoop.
That's kind of the time that people call that into question. You know,
Yep.
That's one of those big events that would cause you to think about that stuff.
Yep, totally, yeah.
So in terms of the comic, is there any similarities to Odin backstory here without giving anything away?
You want me to answer with a yes or no?
You can start with a yes. So is there anything similar?
No.
So it's very different than
very different.
Do you meet any of Odin's family?
No, I don't think you do.
Okay.
No, you just Odin. And, I'm sure Odin shows up a lot later.
Yeah, that's what Nick has said previously.
Yeah. So,
and he's just kind of the guy in charge of the town.
Yep.
Over the police.
Yep. And, the intestines thing, that kind of goes in with Odin. He loves meat and everything like that. But no, learning this about Odin certainly changes things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of gives you a much clearer idea of all of his motivations.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Props to Jackie Earle Haley.
Oh yeah, great.
It was a beautiful performance.
Oh yeah. He's been great all season.
I'm not that happy with John Custer.
Right.
That especially this scene, for some reason the I think he says what did you do? The way that comes out of his mouth.
Yeah.
When Jackie Earle Haley's your scene partner, though, I mean, I can't, I can't decry you for whatever comes out of your mouth, but that's kind of, I don't know, just a little disappointed in John.
That guy, the actor, he doesn't seem up to par with who John Custer is in the book.
Yeah,
because John Custer in the book is a lot more someone to look up to.
Bit more of a role model, has a presence and a charisma.
Oh, totally, completely,
yeah. So that what can you really do about that? I wanted to look up his name really quick. Nathan Darrow plays John Custer.
Okay, yeah.
Previously of House of Cards, as John brought up a couple episodes.
Okay, cool.
Ago.
I haven't watched House of Cards, but
that's okay.
Thank you. Thanks for that.
Yep.
You absolved me of watching House of Cards.
It's okay that you haven't watched it, and also the show is okay as well.
Okay, gotcha.
I've seen of it.
Cool.
But I will forgive you.
Thank you.
So let's get into Act 1 here. We're back in modern day. We open on the Kincannon men bursting into the church. They see a bunch of of Jesse's stuff and see the hole in the ground that he's trying to get Eugene out of. But then we kind of cut to him ambushing them. There's lots of noises, lots of gunshots and stuff like that, and then all the men are walking back out to Odin. Odin and Donnie is there at the time. Donnie's like, back to the drawing board. What did he say? And then they're all like, he didn't say anything. He just kicked our asses.
Yep.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. It's like Jesse doesn't need Genesis in order to hold his own.
Right.
And in a fracas like that. So that was very cool. Jesse's beckoning God to bring back Eugene next to the pile of guns that he's confiscated from all the Kincannon men who tried to take the church. And then Eugene seemingly comes back up through the dirt from below the church. Eugene seems shocked, but yet kind of happy and relieved to see the preacher. And but he's kind of doubtful of it. He says that they try to trick you a lot in hell, which I thought was interesting. And Eugene drinks 3 full glasses of water. Jesse asks him how he got out. And Eugene says that he heard Jesse's voice thing call him. And Jesse, I'm just going to recite the lines here. Jesse says, "You dug out of hell with your hands?" And Eugene says, "It's not that far." Which I was like, wow.
Yeah, that was cool.
And then also Jesse asks, "What's it like?" And Eugene says, "Crowded." And we cut to Kincannon explaining his plans for Jesse's land, kind of as a way to motivate the guys to actually get Jesse out of the church. And then we cut back to Jesse apologizing to Eugene and saying he's right about everything and he thinks about giving back Genesis. But then we kind of realize that Eugene isn't actually back. It's just a figment of Jesse's imagination. That's a lot in Act 1. But, so what did you think about the interaction with Eugene? Were you expecting him to come back? Because I was like, oh man, I'm so glad Eugene's back.
I was happy that he was back. Literally pulling him out from the ground.
Yeah.
And the way Eugene was acting and everything he was saying, it's like when somebody tells you, like, the stereotypical thing when somebody comes back from hell, you'd think they would say hot.
Yeah.
Like, how's hell? It's hot.
Yeah.
Because you think of fire. But the fact that he said crowded,
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit, he was there. I was like, because, there's probably a lot of people in hell, you know? And then how he said, what was the other thing he said? He said how it wasn't that far.
Yeah.
I would believe that too,
Yeah.
I would be like, wow, he must have really been there. And then the whole water glass thing, and then you see the water wasn't drank at all.
Yeah, the water glass is sitting on the pew.
Yeah, yeah. Which I knew something was funny. Of like the tension and the feeling in that scene made me believe that it wasn't on the up and up.
Especially the way Jesse asked Eugene to stay put right there towards the back of the church, and then when he walks back in, Eugene's moved up to like the front row.
Yeah,
and
right.
Like that's kind of the first suggestion of like maybe Eugene's not
right. Yeah,
not actually there.
Yeah,
but I didn't catch it until they told me. I was
like,
whoa.
Yeah, and then he shows up again. He moves again when he looks at the water glass, and then he's sitting next to him rather than in front of him.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
Yeah, yeah. It's too bad he's not back yet. Because he is back. He's still speaking to him.
Yeah.
But I'm worried about him.
Me too.
Yeah.
Like I would be disappointed if all we got of Eugene was just like a figment of Jesse's imagination. Although it's that's not all bad,
Yeah, right.
But it's very interesting. We also had Jesse calling Sheriff Root to come and pick up Eugene.
Right.
Which we'll talk about a little bit more later on.
Okay, cool.
But
let's see. There was one other thing. The motivation that
King Cannon's plan.
Of where everything was going to go in the food court.
Yeah.
I love that part.
Food court.
Yeah.
So excited about the food court.
Yep.
And he's like, but there's not going to be anything in the food court if you guys don't do anything right now.
And at that point, did the guy, have we reached that yet? I can't remember. Did the one guy?
Not yet.
Okay, cool.
Not yet. Cool. Well, I wrote that one down.
Gotcha. That's a big part. So.
But yeah, no, that was pretty good. Okay. King Cannon on his soapbox.
Yeah, always.
It's just such a striking image of him, this tiny man getting up on the soapbox to talk to all these people.
For sure.
So that's beautiful.
Yep.
Act 2, we open on Tulip at the dog pound, and she adopts a dog. Miles swings by on Emily to check on her after hearing that the church is getting torn down, which she didn't hear about because it wasn't happening according to Jesse. But he gave it to King Cannon. And Emily asked Miles to take the kids to school, and he obliges after their little like fight that they have. I thought that was funny. Of like, she still has the gall to be like, "Would you please take the kids to school while I take care of this?"
Right? Yeah, 3 kids. Just got to do something with them.
Yeah, it makes me wonder how much she like wanted to be a parent. Like maybe her husband in the past wanted the kids. Do we know anything about her husband?
No, nothing at all.
Yeah, like I don't know. Maybe
you meet her and she's like dating people, I guess, right? In the first episode, like she said, like Jesse said something to her about, "Do you go out with people?" And she's like, "Yeah, I go out."
Yeah,
stuff like that.
Which that could easily be her being like, like, what do you think I am?
Yeah.
But it's like I would be curious when we're going to learn a little bit more about Emily,
right?
And that situation of like, how the kids got there, and did her husband or boyfriend, whoever it happens to be, if they were even married, did he die or did he leave, or what was the case?
Right. That could be a question.
Yeah. So Emily races off to the church to see what's going on. Donnie leads the charge on the church as Jesse makes a Molotov cocktail using the anointing oil. I don't know if you noticed that, but he's using the jug. It's not gasoline; it's like anointing oil that he would use.
Yep.
Which was beautiful. Anointing oil and a bottle of booze, like a whiskey bottle.
Yeah.
Jesse's taking pot shots out of the clock tower to disable and stop the men without killing them. And then he throws the Molotov to stop the bulldozer. And then there's another dude with a bayonet running in saying, "Food court, food court, food court." As if that's enough to make a man like sacrifice himself.
Yes. Yeah. For sure.
I guess if you live in Anvil, then maybe. All the men retreat as Odin yells at them. They want to know where Clive is, and it turns out that the preacher shot his dick off.
Yeah.
With a pretty well-aimed shot, which he holds as he walks back to Odin. Root pulls up to see Eugene since Jesse had called him earlier in the episode. But I don't understand why Sheriff Root is just kind of like, he seems very nonplussed about the situation. Almost like he's not surprised any of it's going on for some reason.
Yeah.
Maybe Odin had like called him up and was like, "Hey, I'm going to do this. It's within my rights."
Verbal agreement.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
But then they're both kind of standing there, and the preacher boots up his loudspeaker and says he wants to see the agents. Odin thinks he says the Asians.
Yeah, the Asians.
And then Sheriff Root goes to grab Fiore and DeBlanc. So yeah, Act 2. Everything is pretty great. I enjoy the malicious style, Civil War-esque attacks on the church.
Yeah, yeah.
And I enjoy the fact that Jesse still holds them all off, even though he's outrageously outnumbered.
Yeah, yeah. That's very in line with the comics. Because Jesse and also Cassidy, they're very good at what they do, and they're very strong.
They're strong and tactically minded.
Yes,
people.
Yeah.
So that was pretty good. It's a pretty good portrayal of that.
Mm-hmm.
It feels a lot like Batman, except he's out in the day.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, no, the food court moment was great.
Awesome.
The Clive moment, we've talked about a few times in the past of like where you can feel Seth Rogen seeping into the show.
Yeah.
And that's one of those, what if he shoots his dick off?
Right. And clean off.
Yeah, no, like clean off, retrievable even.
Yeah. And the fact that the guy kept talking about it.
He's not like on the ground writhing in pain.
Right.
He's just kind of like, it was a good shot.
Yeah. I'm probably going to be hurting a couple hours from now, but right now I feel fine.
Yeah, that was pretty remarkable.
That's good stuff. Yeah.
Not something I think I would normally see on television.
Right.
But,
so I'm glad they went there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Anything else about Act 2?
Yeah, Sheriff Root. The thing, he kind of just shows up and he's like, my boy's in there. He doesn't go in there to get Eugene, but he's like, my boy's in there. You know, a little weird.
Yeah, it's very strange. It's almost like he thinks that like Jesse called him there.
Yeah,
but he still doesn't think that he can walk up to the church to go like. Very strange.
Yes. Yeah.
So if anybody has any thoughts on that, let us know. Mm-hmm. Act 3, Jesse lets Fiore and DeBlanc in after using Genesis to allow them to get close to him again, since he told them to stay away. Root is glad to let, quote-unquote, the agents handle it, and he says he wouldn't know what to do without Eugene. And Odin just kind of turns to him and says, you'd figure it out, which I thought was interesting given the intro of this episode. Root kind of chastises Odin for seizing Holy Land, while Odin just kind of comes out with it and says, it's all a lie anyway.
Yeah.
You know, what does it matter if I tear this church down because there is no God, is kind of like the Odin's mantra. Jesse apologizes for not listening to Fiore and DeBlanc and asks their help in getting Eugene, but they say they won't help him till they get Genesis back. I noticed there's a very interesting theory out on Reddit that maybe Fiore and DeBlanc are the parents of Genesis.
Could be.
And because there's a few little clues. It's interesting. If you guys want to check it out, go on reddit.com/rpreacher. I don't know if there's really any comic spoilers in it. I don't think so. There's because I know there's some differences in the origin of Genesis at the very least, if this is the case. But I thought it was very interesting because there's been a few opportunities where like Fiore and DeBlanc's responses to things seem different, or somebody goes to respond and the other one shuts him up.
Yeah.
So that's happened a few times where it's kind of like maybe there's something fishy going on here. One of which was the idea that Fiore says that you could get somebody out of hell.
Yeah.
DeBlanc says
they
no.
disagree on things, right? Yeah.
So that was interesting.
And then Fiore's like, well, it's really difficult or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the reasoning in that Reddit thread was like, DeBlanc says no because he's the devil in the relationship and doesn't want to deal with all the red tape.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
But who knows? Maybe more on that later. Clive gets seen off in the ambulance as Emily pulls up, and Miles explains to Emily that Kincannon has a good vision for this land and that the preacher isn't as good a man as everyone thinks. Pretty salient point there. Tulip plays fetch with the dog from the pound, presumably in the backyard of Uncle Walter's. Not presumably, it is. We know by the end of the episode. And then Fiore and DeBlanc set up to take Genesis from Jesse. They explain that Genesis chose many people, but they all exploded. So Jesse kind of learns that. Jesse's still kind of trying to explain that he thinks God wanted him to have it, or that, don't they ever ask questions? And they say no.
Yeah, the questioning part was like, said that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just kind of like, why don't you guys ever ask, like, what you're angels,
Yep.
And then DeBlanc is like, if God wanted you to do good with Genesis, what good have you done since you've had Genesis?
Drop the mic.
Yeah, and then that's it. And Jesse lies down to do the ritual. Pretty strong. Do you have any thoughts about anything in here?
No, I think you said everything. They're wanting to do this because of a certain reason, which I think we'll get to later. But that whole dynamic between, like you said about with Fiore and DeBlanc. Yeah, they're two kind of complementary people. Because one of them wants to get Genesis out one way, and the other one wants to get it out the other way.
Yep.
Other option.
Which is part of what makes me almost forget about the "are they the parents" thing, because I don't think they'd be so willing to like just, because I don't know if killing Jesse would also mean killing Genesis or not.
Yeah, right.
That's kind of what I'm not sure about. I don't even know if it's possible to kill Genesis. So
right,
that we could learn more about later, possibly.
Yeah.
All right.
So what do you think of what the mayor is saying to Emily? Like all that stuff.
It's very interesting. It seemed like a very declarative, not to keep going back to this word, but a very declarative thesis for Miles of like, and it seems like almost a very logical reasoning for him to have drawn this line in the sand.
Yeah.
Because we saw him like worrying about what color pants to put on a couple episodes ago.
Yeah.
And that was as I think this decision was in process to either go with Odin or go against Odin. And we know who he's picked. We know which side he's on now.
Yeah.
So, and I think he's kind of the first one that really calls Jesse as a spade. Like Odin's got other reasons to be against Jesse. But Miles looks at this situation and is like, what is this nutty preacher doing? He made an agreement. He's not sticking with it. And now he's shooting at people as they try to get him to comply with this agreement.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just, it's a weird moment of clarity for Miles, because he's not the person that I expected it to come from.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
So I don't know what I expected out of Miles, really.
Yeah. Well, you can say for one thing for certain is because they put that in the scenes from last episode preacher thing at the beginning. How like Emily says to Miles, "I'll never be with you."
Yeah.
I think that's his motive.
Oh.
Yeah.
Of like a.
He wants Emily, and I think he knows that Emily wants Jesse.
Yeah. I guess that's true. I don't feel like I've seen much that makes me think that Miles understands that she wants Jesse.
Oh, okay.
Because I think she plays it very close to the chest.
Oh, yeah, she does. That's true.
But that makes sense to me. Like it would almost be him tarnishing Jesse and being like, come be with the winners, bro.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yep. Yeah.
That's interesting. That's interesting. All right. On to Act 4. Kincannon men and the townsfolk are essentially tailgating outside of the church to watch the siege. Kincannon explains their strategy as Donnie sees his wife. And when he sees her, he gets this kind of look on his face, and he starts walking towards his car, where he takes off his sling and the rest of his outfit, and then kneels into the trunk and pulls his gun in and fires. I was like, what is going on right now?
Right? No explanation.
I was like, did he just give up? He's like,
Yeah.
I've failed as a man, and he sees his wife and he thinks I failed as a man.
That was a very deceiving. Hold on. That was a very telling thing because, his wife is kind of like, she wants him to be a man, kind of thing. And if he's not a man, then what good is he?
Yeah. And we eventually realized he saw her and was like, I got to do what I got to do.
Yeah. So
we'll get back to that later.
Mm-hmm.
DeBlanc sings Winkin', Blinkin', and Nod once again, but it's not working. Fiore's like, he's resisting. So they tell Jesse to stop, and then they remove Genesis. Fiore and DeBlanc won't help Jesse get Eugene back, but Genesis, after hearing the quarrel, fires back into Jesse, destroying the coffee can. And Fiore says, well, that settles it then. And the other option it's over, preacher. No more trying. Like, Jesse tries to get them to come back and do it again. Mm-hmm. And they're like, nope.
Yeah.
We've tried enough.
Yep.
We've got to solve this another way.
Yep.
So on the podcast, we've talked in the past wondering what that big option is. I think I know what it is now.
Okay, yeah, probably we've dropped enough Hansel and Gretel pieces of
I don't want to say anything just yet in case anybody's still along for the ride. Because I think there's a lot of information that Nick has given to me that the watchers may not necessarily have.
Gotcha.
Although I don't know if anybody's listening to this and has not read the comic. Let me know. I want to know if there's anybody in my position here that is still appreciating the fact that we're not kind of jumping ahead and really calling everything as we're seeing it. If we want Nick to call things as he sees them, or Lance in this case to call things as he sees them, we can totally do that. But I want to know if anybody out there is blissfully unaware of the comic and still watching things unfold.
I think it's good to keep it. Because, I don't know. Every time a movie is announced where there was based on a book, sometimes I rush to read the book. But why? Why can't I just enjoy the movie for what it is?
And that's always a question that I've come to. Yeah. And there have been a few times where I'll read the book before the movie, or I've already read the book before I see the movie. But I have realized that I so much cherish the cinematic experience more so than the book reading experience that I will mostly eschew any book reading at this point, unless I want to go back and check it out. So
you should. They're both there for you.
Yeah,
but blissfully, watching the show. Sometimes I wish I. Because some of the things
you
change.
have expectations.
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
Like, I want to see these things happen, and then things start to happen where you're like, maybe I'm not going to see that.
Yeah, there's one major thing. With Jesse's family that I'd love to see, and I don't think I'm going to see it. And it's a big part of the book that I like, so I might not see it. So now I have this preconception of that, and I'm like, do I feel let down?
Yeah.
It's like it's not their fault,
I feel like you don't have that same experience if you watch the show first and then you go and look at the differences of the comic. You don't become disappointed that the comic isn't like the show.
Okay. Yeah.
I think you're mostly like wanting to. I think if you go back and do that, you're wanting to see the differences. Whereas somebody like you and Nick, it definitely is like this is how it was here, and I really enjoyed it this way, and I don't know if I'll like it if they change it.
Right.
I think in both of your cases, obviously, you're still enjoying it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But there's still obviously that thing of like, man, I wish,
Yeah.
It's like Nick wanting Hank Pym to be the maker of Ultron and the Avengers.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But that's a whole nother thing. Listen to the Midwest Film Nerds at MidwestFilmNerds.com. So... anything else on Act 4 in particular? Genesis coming, like the ritual worked.
Yep. Worked at first
for a minute.
and now the coffee can is completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's done.
That holy receptacle or whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever the hell is. Yeah.
So do you the reason that Genesis seemingly explodes out of the coffee can is because Jesse's like really trying to get Fiore to Blanc to help him get Eugene back.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that Genesis explodes out of the can and like I can help you? Like,
yeah, it could be. It could be that.
That was kind of the reading that I got out of it, but
yeah.
I didn't know if it was just kind of like a...
Yeah. Genesis wanting to... Well, Genesis chose different people before Jesse.
Yeah.
And now it found Jesse, and now Jesse can somehow contain
Harness it.
Yeah. So... And maybe Genesis doesn't want to be in heaven.
They
maybe
realize that symbiotic relationship.
Right. They're kind of one kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah.
It just seemed like a very like the way that it was edited together. It seemed like it was Genesis had a reaction to Jesse's "Who can help me?" You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm wondering if. How that's going to play out.
Yeah, I'm excited to find out as well.
Anything else on Act 4?
Nope.
All right. And then we get to Act 5 finally. The preacher is sleepily or drunkenly waiting as gunfire tears up the church and the entire town is watching. At the back of the church where food from last week's dinner by Tulip sits, Donnie kind of sneaks in without his costume but holding a gun to the preacher. It turns out, obviously, Donnie didn't kill himself. He just deafened himself.
Yeah, there was ringing in the trunk.
Yes.
Yeah, which I thought about later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, which, you know what? Kind of firing a gun in an enclosed trunk, you're kind of close to the gas tank at that point. But
right. And with the blood trickling, I almost thought it was like he shot himself in the mouth and it exited the ear or something like that. But no, it's the eardrum.
Yeah.
Just totally destroyed.
Yep. Yeah. He just, gone.
Yeah.
So Jesse tries to use Genesis, or he doesn't try to use Genesis at first to get Donnie to put it down. And then he's like, do you want me to do it? And then he does it, and it doesn't work because Donnie can't hear anything. So Donnie knocks Jesse out. And then we open up on Odin talking about the Alamo again and kind of comparing Jesse's stand to that.
Yeah. They put the civil in Civil War. They were sitting across from each other, just discussing.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
And then Odin explains that he so Jesse kind of asks him, "I told you to serve God.
Mm-hmm.
What happened?" And Odin says, "I serve the god of meat, the god of what's tangible, touchable, and true." So we got our answer. That was something we discussed last week, is who does Odin serve? What kind of god? And that's it. Odin explains that following a god who's silent is crazy. And Jesse starts signing the deed, but then explains he wants one more Sunday to bring God to the church since he can't bring the town to God. He's going to question God, get him to explain why he's been absent in all these people's lives. And then Tulip's spending some time with Brewski, some quality time, telling him he's the best. And then she leads him to the back of Uncle Walter's house, where she closes it in a room, and we hear it get slaughtered. This is clearly, I think it's got to be Cassidy, right?
Got to be.
She's helping Cassidy get healthy again after immolating in the sunlight.
Yeah.
And then Root arrests Jesse as the town starts going crazy outside of the thing. There's people that sound like believers, and Jesse, you're the only one that can save us. And then there's other people that are calling him despicable and all that kind of stuff. And then we cut to black. But it comes back. The pressure alarm is blaring that we've seen previously. A man at a control panel presses the button to vent and sits down in his chair. And that's it.
Yeah.
So we got a lot to unpack here. I like how clever Donnie seems to be, even though sometimes he seems really stupid.
Yeah. Yeah.
He definitely seems like he's like the follower and not the leader. in
Yeah.
terms of he's Odin's right-hand man.
Mm-hmm.
But he's still really one of the first people to put together what Jesse's got going on with Genesis. And
I think he was the one that also said, "What'd he say? What did he say?" He didn't say nothing.
Yeah.
He just kicked our asses.
Yeah, he was asking the men at the beginning of the episode, "What has he been saying to you?" And
Yeah.
then they're like, "Yeah, he didn't even use it, bro."
Right. Yeah, what a real, because that's the only way, really. There's one other way that the word doesn't work on somebody in the comic, but that's really a good way to get it to stop from working on you.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Like, I guess my question about that is then, would it work if you don't speak English?
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
I think there's something like that in the comic. I think so. Out of 60 or 70 issues, I think they do explore
They cover that one.
I think they do, yeah.
Maybe Genesis knows all tongues.
Maybe.
So, yeah. What else do we got here?
So the god of meat. So now we know it's your interpretation.
Yes.
Because serve God is many things to many people.
Yeah.
So you say serve God to Odin Kincannon, it means god of meat.
Yeah. It's serve who I believe is God. Like
Yeah.
that. I guess the question is if Jesse would have been like, serve the God of Christianity.
Yeah,
is that
right.
specific enough to turn Odin into a Christian?
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
But
yeah,
obviously it's too late for Jesse to find that out.
Yeah.
So that's good to know.
Yeah.
Some further clarification on Genesis's power.
Yeah.
What do you think about Jesse's plan to bring God to the church? Are we going to see God next episode?
You know, you might, because yeah, that's what he wants to do.
Yeah.
And it's also kind of fulfilling this thing that Odin wanted done. I want you to denounce God.
Yeah.
So Jesse is like offering this one last chance.
Yeah.
So I will denounce God if, you know.
It's interesting. Yeah. It makes me wonder if John was in similar circumstances, like with
at some
Genesis
point,
and Fiore de Blanc and learning about angels and demons and all this stuff going on. Would he have been more open to Odin's request back in the 90s or whenever that was?
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And then hopefully Cassidy gets better.
Yeah, Cassidy.
I liked this episode, but I missed him.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, he's always, you know, down to the way he says Jesus. It's perfect casting for sure. And you know, who you're gonna find out a lot more about Cassidy, and I hope they explore that with this guy because he just seems like the right person to do it.
Yeah,
right person to pull it off. So, yeah, Tulip and Cassidy, yeah, having that's good that they have a relationship.
Yeah. And then the pressure alarm.
Oh yeah.
I talked to Nick about this previously, with some other insider knowledge that he's given to me, and I think I know what's going on. I thought we were gonna get this last morsel and see it happen. And at the end of this episode, especially when they cut to it.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering. Yeah. I'm wondering what's going to happen next episode.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I think I know.
I think the chess pieces were all in place for something crazy to happen.
Yeah, you got to remember, there's a lot of people that worked on Breaking Bad are working on this show.
Yeah.
And Breaking Bad was very good at dropping hints and kind of building towards something. I was just about to say a word that I don't want to say because people who read the comic know what happens. Know what happens in the first issue.
It's very much Sam Catlin, the executive producer who used to be a writer on Breaking Bad, has clearly gone to the school of Vince Gilligan that is planting seeds for things that pay off much later.
Right.
And so hopefully we'll see more of that next episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't think there's that many new questions here in this episode.
No, we're at episode 8.
Yeah, we got 2 more left.
Is it episode 9?
It's yeah. So no, this is episode 8.
Yeah.
It is the 8th episode of the show. It's what AMC is calling episode 7.
Okay.
Because episode 1 was episode 0 for some stupid reason.
Well, it makes sense because it's almost like Preacher 0 because,
this is
it's almost like a prequel.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
In
It's
some
kind
ways.
of. It grabs things from all over, but yeah. It was pretty cool.
Episode wise, was it one of your favorites of the season? Was it in the middle?
It's in the middle because some things I felt were just a little strange how they were playing out. The structure of the episode mainly, but afterwards I realized like, okay, they took this one situation, the kind of standoff between Jesse and Odin, and they just played it out through the whole episode. So in that sense, it's pretty good.
Yeah, and I think they did a good job of exploring things where in another episode it would just been like if this was like any other TV show, you just kind of be like, God, they didn't get to any there's nothing happened this week.
Yeah.
But I think we learned a lot about Odin right off the bat
Absolutely.
of the show.
Yep.
We got to explore a lot more, even with Donnie himself and Miles, and just kind of what Odin's motivation is. Not only from the past, but also right now. Like, why is he doing what he's doing? So, I think it was still a very worthwhile episode, even though it's in the larger scheme of things, it feels like it might just be some table setting.
Yeah, it does feel like that. Yeah.
So,
but I will say I do like some of the cinematography in there a lot. Like, especially when Miles was talking to Emily, you saw the church in the background.
Yeah,
that was pretty cool. And
I'm still a huge fan of Odin's office.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's been that way since the 90s, but it's always so extremely lit. It's just a beautiful set. It's awesome.
Right. Yeah.
So
it's cool. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's the end of our episode here. Once again, you can find more episodes of our podcast on g2tpodcast.com. That's the letter G, number 2, letter T, podcast.com. We're also on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play Music as well. So please go check us out there. Rate and review us on those places because that lets more people see us. And the more people that see us and listen to us means that we will do more shows. We'll keep going for even longer. So please do that. We're also on G2T Podcast. We're G2T Podcast on Twitter, and you can email us at g2tpodcast@gmail.com to tell us what you think of our show and share your thoughts on AMC's Preacher so we can read them on air. Send us corrections, observations, anything relating to Preacher or our podcast. If you want to hear some of us talk about film with a few of our friends, please be sure to check out the Midwest Film Nerds podcast at midwestfilmnerds.com. Lance, I missed you on it last week. We went and saw Swiss Army Man. And
I saw that too.
We should have had you on.
Oh yeah.
Because I feel like it would have been a good movie to talk with you.
Yeah,
about.
it's good. I mean,
it's great.
How original is quite the feat that this film, and especially from two new filmmakers.
Yeah,
yeah,
totally.
The Daniels.
Yes,
not the Daniels.
Daniels is what it is. So we'll have to have you back on very soon.
For sure.
And then also we've got a game podcast on the Midwest Podcast Network. It's called the Midwest Game Nerds, and you can check it out at midwestgamenerds.com. Finally, our theme music is the song All In by The Red Thread, and it's being used under a non-commercial Creative Commons license. And please go forth and speak the good word.